Buddy Valastro experienced his first panic episode at the age of 27. Millions watched him smile on camera when he hit it. He operated 75 vending machines, 7 eateries, and 14 bakeries by 2020. Then his hand was destroyed in a strange accident. As they cut through metal to save him, his sons witnessed him scream. His current net worth exceeds $10 million. However, the empire is already being divided by his children. It takes no flour to earn $150,000. Another received 12 million views and went viral, and you'll be shocked by his own true metamorphosis. On March 3, 1977, Buddy Valastro was born in Hoboken, New Jersey. Despite having very little money, his parents, who were Italian immigrants, arrived to America with huge ambitions. A tiny apartment above Carlo's bakery was the family's residence. The worry of unpaid debts permeated the air along with the aroma of freshly baked bread. Bartolo Sr., his father, worked 16-hour shifts and occasionally slept on flour sacks when he was too exhausted to travel home. Mary, his mother, stayed up late counting pennies in an attempt to determine whether she could pay the power bill and buy milk. Day-old pastries and whatever didn't sell in the store were their only sources of sustenance. Buddy slept on the couch in the living room and wore clothes that had been passed down from his 4 older sisters. Although life was difficult, he learned the importance of perseverance and thankfulness from that experience. Buddy's life altered when he was 11 years old. Lung cancer was identified in his father. To maintain the bakery, the family needed assistance. Buddy went to work while the other youngsters played video games or played baseball. He washed floors and cleaned mixing bowls after school. His hands cramped as he piped buttercream roses. His days began at 6 in the morning and concluded long after dark. Even though he only made $20 a week, he gained experience in everything from order management to pastry making. He was able to produce $800 wedding cakes by the age of 13. That money paid the mortgage and helped keep the lights on. His prosperity in the future would be based on such sacrifices. However, nothing could have prepared him for the events of 1994. His father passed away from an unexpected heart attack when he was just 17. The pressure was much more intense as the grief. The bakery was having trouble. Sales had declined. The amount of debt was increasing. Without any delay, Buddy took over. He lacked training and business experience, and no time to solve problems gradually. His decision to drop out of high school followed him around for years. He was waking up at 4 in the morning while his pals were off to college, to handle payroll and bake bread. His back ached all the time, his days were long, and he was always doubting himself. Was this the correct course of action? Had he sacrificed too much? While locked in a kitchen attempting to keep the family afloat, he watched his pals construct their futures. The tension was intolerable. He was more than a businessman. He was the sole provider for his 4 sisters and mother. He experienced panic episodes. He didn't sleep. When no one was around, he sobbed. Even if there were times when it seemed like too much, he persisted. Buddy experienced a series of setbacks from 1998 to 2003 that were devastating to his finances and emotional well-being. The worst was when he attempted to use $800 worth of exquisite Belgian chocolate to build an elegant Italian wedding cake. The cake fell just hours before the wedding. To preserve the event, the family had to work through the night and spend an additional $1,200 on supplies. Buddy once overbaked 200 cannoli shells while experimenting with a novel technique. The cost of that one error was $400, nearly a week's worth of revenue for the faltering bakery. Although these catastrophes were heartbreaking, they also forced Buddy to become more cautious and accurate. He learned from every error, and every risk, no matter how expensive, was a step closer to being an expert in his field. From 1994 until 2005, the bakery barely survived those early years. Revenue was approximately $8,000 per month, just enough to pay for ingredients, electricity, and rent. As little as $150 was earned on certain frigid days. That was all. The lights were only kept on by 40 to 50 frequent customers, the most of whom were elderly Italian Americans. The actual bakery was only 800 square feet in size. 6 customers might be accommodated at once. Additionally, some of the equipment was so outdated that it was from the 1960s. The family lost hundreds of dollars when the display cases broke and the pastries were ruined. No funds were available for replacements. Instead, they fixed what they could with household tools. Frequently working 16-hour hours every day, Buddy made less than the minimum wage. Although it was a harsh and exhausting life, it was necessary to keep the bakery open. It was a family affair all the way through. Buddy wasn't working alone on this. Mary, his mother, was in charge of the finances. Despite lacking a business degree, she maintained strict control over the budget and fought over every dollar. Each of his 4 sisters contributed. The friendly, cheery face that welcomed clients was Grace. Like a drill sergeant, Madalena oversaw inventory. Mary concentrated on the decor. Lisa worked with vendors. Despite their many arguments about finances, schedules, and relationships, they remained a family, and that combination of tension and love somehow worked. What at the moment seemed like mayhem would turn out to be the ideal setting for reality television. Real-life conflicts between their personalities, fights, embraces, business discussions, and family drama were what ultimately made them famous. But the lowest point came before the fame. Between 2001 and 2004, everything nearly collapsed. Large commercial bakeries began to open, cutting costs and extending their hours of operation. One opened 3 blocks away in 2002. Thanks to automated machinery and bulk purchasing, they were able to sell comparable Italian pastries at a 30% lower cost. Carlo's bakery lost around 40% of their clientele very immediately. Revenue dropped to $4,800 per month. Not even the bills could be paid with that. Started to think about giving up. He considered selling the company. Some purchasers made offers ranging from $45,000 to $60,000. It was too much to handle. Buddy lost 25 pounds after he stopped eating healthily. He had trouble falling asleep. To get extra cash, his mother had to work at a nearby grocery store. His sisters began looking for alternative employment. Then the pivotal moment arrived. The family got down and had a difficult talk at the end of 2003. They decided to give it another year. If things didn't get better, they would permanently leave. Everything changed with that choice. They worked as hard as they could to make it work, and gradually, things began to improve. Valastro participated in the Food Network Challenge in 2004. Chefs from all across the United States competed in a challenging event. Buddy was more than simply a baker. His charm and one-liners took everyone by surprise. Even though he took home the $10,000 prize, something more significant occurred. He became aware of his ability for television. His ascent from a neighborhood baker in Hoboken to a nationally recognized brand began with that one victory. Producers noticed something in him, even though he never considered himself TV material. His brand was a blend of humor, self-assurance, and baking prowess. In 2007, Buddy returned to the Food Network Challenge, this time to serve as a mentor rather than to compete. Giving advice wasn't the only thing involved. In the background, he was studying how TV operated. He observed crowd reactions, narratives, and camera angles. He was honing the talents he would need for his own show behind the scenes. In addition to managing Carlo's bakery, he was getting ready for something more ambitious. He was no longer merely making cakes. One guest appearance at a time, he was establishing a reputation in the television industry. Then the greatest surprise of all occurred. Buddy repeatedly declined when producers first proposed a reality program based on his bakery. He feared that cake artistry would be ruined by the cameras. The producers persisted despite his desire to keep his profession from becoming a joke. Finally he conceded. TLC debuted Cake Boss in April 2009. It got popular right away. It depicted not only cakes but also his family, their quarrels, their cooperation, and the mayhem. Buddy was suddenly more than just a baker. The Cake Boss was him. Everything changed with that premiere. The popularity of the show skyrocketed. The Hoboken bakery was overrun by tourists. For a glimpse they waited in line around the block. Though fame came with pressure, Carlo's bakery became a must-visit location. Dealing with fans, filming continuously, and attempting to maintain the business became extremely difficult. Nevertheless, Buddy was able to expand his bakery beyond his wildest dreams. He was most surprised by how fast everything happened. His little bakery became a national brand in a matter of weeks. Cake Boss has 11 years of continuous fame, from 2009 to 2020. Buddy lost his privacy, even though it made him a household name. His entire life was made public. His sisters and his mother Mary were well known on television. When his mother died in 2017, fans showered the bakery with cards, artwork and flowers. She was grieved as if she were family by those who had never met her. The show had gotten so intimate that it was practically impossible to grieve alone. Other issues also came with fame. His home was visited by fans. Security started to become a serious issue. Being a baker in a small town was no longer enjoyable for Buddy. Hoboken was different. He was living a different life. The bakery has changed from being a little quiet corner store. It was a worldwide draw. By the year 2010, the crowds were too much for the first store on Washington Street. There were tourists everywhere. The street corner was even christened Carlo's Bakery way by the city. Although it was an honor, it also led to tension and traffic bottlenecks. Serving that many people was never intended for the bakery. Buddy needs more room. He thus inaugurated a 30,000 square foot facility at Jersey City's Lackawanna Center in November 2010. It was enormous. Ovens, offices, and shipping stations were all there. Millions of dollars were spent. He could now transport cakes all over the country though. The little family bakery has grown into a full-fledged culinary enterprise. Buddy continued after that. He desired to develop farther. At one point, Carlo's Bakery operated about 20 stores in several states, including Florida, Texas, New York, and even Nevada. He established Buddy V's Ristorante in Las Vegas in 2013. Next were Buddy's Jersey Eats, Pizza Cake and the Boss Cafe. He was now a food empire builder rather than merely a baker. He also started a catering company in 2014. Additionally, he unveiled cake ATMs in 2019. Indeed, machines that sold cake slices. They can be found in retail malls in the US and Canada, as well as in cities like Toronto and Las Vegas. There were 30 of them in certain cities. The convenience was adored. Buddy maintained his lead in this way as well. He also published a book in November 2010 of same year. Cake Boss Stories and Recipes from Mia Familia was the title of the book. It was released precisely 100 years after the bakery's 1910 opening. There were 37 recipes in the 272-page book, ranging from cannoli to red velvet cake. It was more than simply food though. It described how his mother, father, sisters and other family members collaborated to transform a dream into a legacy. The novel became a New York Times bestseller. It was commended by critics for fusing inspirational tales with baking knowledge. It was more than just a recipe book. It was an homage to hustle, tradition and family. Buddy was listed as one of the 50 most influential individuals in Hudson County by the Hudson Reporter in 2012. He made that much of an effect just 3 years after Cake Boss started. The number of visitors to Hoboken skyrocketed. The bakery on Washington Street helped local companies expand. Buddy Valastro was no longer a cake baker. He opened Buddy V's Ristorante at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas in October 2013. This move disproved the notion that he was merely a TV baker. The restaurant, which cost more than $2 million to create, was located across from his well-known Carlos Bake Shop. It wasn't just him. He collaborated with well-known figures in the field, such as Chef Kim Cantinoala and Elizabeth Blau. The menu, every recipe is from the family. Sunday gravy at Valastro. Nana's lasagne with 7 layers, large servings, strong flavors. The restaurant was 10 years old by 2024. On the Strip, something uncommon, where the majority of eateries close within 3 years. It was prospering, not merely surviving. We won 5 out of the city's 5,000 eateries and received a rating of 4.3 stars from more than 3,290 reviews, placing us at the top. It even won the Las Vegas Review-Journal's Gold Winner Award. He didn't slow down a year later. He started Buddy Valastro's events and catering in 2014. While others might have waited, he chose not to. He chose to go large since people kept asking him about catering and event organizing. He collaborated with one of the industry's most vivacious strategists, Jeffrey Spivak. Together they capitalized on the annual revenue of approximately $11 billion from the Las Vegas event industry. The food was brought by Valastro. It was Spivak who provided the logistics. They used Buddy's famous Italian recipes to provide upscale catering. Buddy swiftly made a name for himself in a market where famous chefs charge up to $2,000 per person. He now had two sources of income, restaurants and events that complemented one another. Both were booming too. Then something unexpected happened. Valastro was chosen to represent Whole Earth Sweetener Company in 2016. Indeed, the Sugar King was suddenly endorsing sweeteners with no calories. Rethink Sweet was the name of the campaign. Went against everything that people believed he stood for, but he accepted it and developed new recipes that were tasty but had fewer calories. It probably paid well. These kinds of celebrity endorsements frequently generate between $500,000 and $5 million annually. He attracted a completely new audience by releasing holiday-themed recipes. It was an obvious message. He might change, and he didn't hesitate to take chances in order to remain current. He shocked everyone one more in 2018, this time with dog treats. But not just any snacks. Pet food with an Italian flair created in collaboration with the Pound Bakery. Dog meatballs, pizza bites and chicken parmesan. They were made for dogs with delicate stomachs, baked in the USA and free of wheat, maize and soy. The Pound Bakery had significant production certifications and more than 20 years of experience. Valastro managed to introduce his Italian brand to the best companion of man. The pet treat market was valued at more than $7 billion annually at the time. He entered that industry with a product that no other well-known chef had even thought of. Then cake ATMs appeared. ATMs for cake indeed. He introduced chilled vending machines in Toronto in November 2019. These were not insignificant devices. They could accommodate 160 slices and 8 complete cakes. Every day they received new places in downtown Toronto's congested walkway system. There was chocolate fudge, red velvet, and rainbow cake. Each slice cost $8.99. Complete cakes cost up to $44.99. That is twice or three times the cost of the majority of desserts found in convenience stores. However, people paid for it. Nor were these machines transient. They were long-term investments that in the appropriate situation could generate over $500,000 annually. Without establishing new locations, he made a daring retail decision by bringing his bakery to clients around the clock. He was managing a TV empire at the time of all of this. Cake Boss was the beginning, but he didn't stop there. He started Next Great Baker in 2010. Kitchen Boss followed a year later, followed within a few years by Buddy's Bakery Rescue, Bake You Rich, and Bakery Boss. By 2013, he was managing Carlo's Bakery and other ventures while balancing 6 shows. He continued to bake while filming and traveling across the nation. The amount of work was crazy. No weekends, long days and little sleep. It wasn't simply difficult. It was risky. Bakery Boss was very challenging. He had to support family bakeries that were struggling. This required him to relive his own emotional baggage while facing theirs. Buddy vs. Duff heated things up even more in 2019. High Stakes Cake competes with Duff Goldman, another legendary figure in pastry. In addition to being enormous, these cakes were architectural marvels, and the pressure was extremely intense. He then performed Buddy vs. Christmas in 2020, but calamity struck that same year. 3 times a metal rod from a pinsetter used in bowling alleys jammed into his fingers. He had to be set free by his adolescent sons. Several surgeries ensued. Nevertheless, he continued to shoot. Even though his dominant hand was hardly working, he continued to work. Bigger cakes, more drama, and more spectacle were required for every new show. He always having to surpass himself, carving sugar, lifting layers and standing for hours. Even though his body was failing, he was unable to slow down. At great personal expense, the Cake Boss fulfilled the audience's expectation. He was exhausted from lack of sleep, incessant urge to invent, and no respite. Although he hid it well, the damage was visible behind the camera. He experienced his first panic episode when he was 27. He went to the emergency hospital because it hit so strongly. The pressure to constantly be flawless, the deadlines, and the stress, everything blew up. He kept it to himself for years. He smiled on camera, but no one realized he was struggling with anxiety. He assisted another baker in overcoming a panic attack in one of the Bakery Boss episodes. Viewers were unaware that he had experienced it firsthand. He was familiar with the sensation. To maintain the brand, he had persevered through panic attacks, surgeries, and breakdowns. Buddy Valastro assumed that he and his family would simply spend the evening unwinding. September 20th, 2020 was the date. He was enjoying his private bowling lane in his mansion in New Jersey. Before it wasn't, everything appeared to be typical. The pin setter machine suddenly jammed, but it went haywire rather than simply stopping. Not only did the equipment break down, it turned into a trap. Buddy's right hand was drawn into the machine in a few seconds. A heavy rod of metal pierced it. 3 times, not just once or twice. It hurt immediately. The rod passed through his hand completely. He was immobile. They pinned him down. He felt waves of pain with every little twitch, his hand including the back palm and fingers. Everything was struck. Pain wasn't the only thing. Panic struck. Blood spurted forth. The machine refused to release its grip. Then the unimaginable happened. He had to be saved by his adolescent boys. To fetch an electric saw, they ran. These children, who were still only boys, had to break through the rod that was imprisoning their father. Consider that. Hands shaking, background shouts. It could have become worse with one mistake. However, they continued. They continued. As their father yelled in agony, they sliced through metal. In some way, they set him free. Buddy was taken to the hospital in a hurry. The doctors didn't mince words. Tendons, muscles, and nerves had probably been torn through by the rod. He might never bake again, they said. That was more than a job to Buddy. His life was like that. His future, his art, and his instruments were his hands. They could now be destroyed. The procedures started right away, one after the other, and by 2023, there were 5 in all, with a 6th still to come. They were all vicious. One after the other chipped away at the harm. He had therapy for months. Everything had to be relearned for him. How to hold on, squeeze, and redecorate a cake. He regained 95% of his hand strength by 2023. Actually, it was a miracle, but it came with suffering, annoyance, and never-ending labor. Then in 2023, as he was starting to regain his rhythm, he took a risk. After leaving TLC, he started 2 new shows on AND, Legends of the Fork and Cake Dynasty. On November 11th, both made their debuts. This was a complete overhaul, not only a TV comeback. Real-life stories took precedence over cake stunts. As his family learned the ins and outs of managing the business, one episode followed them. In the other, he traveled throughout America to discover the secrets of renowned eateries. We saw a different Buddy in Cake Dynasty, one who was now more of a mentor than a celebrity. Buddy Jr., his 19-year-old son, was considering forgoing college to work for the company. Sophia, his 20-year-old daughter, stunned everyone with a beautiful cake she baked for her brother's confirmation. Buddy wondered. She might have been Carlo's bakery's future. The company was no longer a minor matter. They operated 14 bakeries, 75 vending machines and 7 restaurants. The leadership of this empire required a new generation. In the meantime, Buddy was given a new role in Legends of the Fork. He was no longer the most famous baker. He started telling stories. He talked about the cultural background of American cuisine, met chefs, and visited historic eateries. Buddy listened to the stories that were told in each location. He demonstrated the significance of the food, rather than just the dish itself, and it was successful. In June 2024, Buddy won an Emmy for Outstanding Culinary Host. Less than a year after the show's debut, it was his very first Emmy. He defeated some of the most well-known figures in the field. He described it as a dream come true on Instagram. It was the ultimate comeback for someone who nearly lost both his hand and his career. Buddy's tale, however, transcends the stage and the cinema. Through it all, his marriage to Lisa, which began in 2001, remained strong. Sophia, Marco, Carlo, and Buddy Jr. are the 4 children they have raised. Behind the scenes, Lisa controlled the mayhem. She helped the family stay grounded, particularly during the years of injury and recuperation. They moved into a $2.5 million Montville estate in 2014. It included a home theater, a gourmet kitchen, and even a cake decorating studio. Even though property taxes alone cost more than $35,000 annually, they were worthwhile. The house was worth more than $3.2 million by 2025, and the following generation is now beginning to leave their mark. In just 2 years, 22-year-old Sophia produced $150,000 for her clients by starting a marketing agency. Buddy Jr., 21, is creating a bakery idea with a sports motif. After recreating one of his father's most famous desserts, 18-year-old Marco received 12 million views in 3 days. The youngest 14-year-old Carlo is already enrolled in weekend cooking classes in New York. In addition to building a new portion of the family business, each child has never stopped giving back. He has given more over $2.3 million in cakes, time, and money since 2010. Through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, he has had more than 100 wishes fulfilled. When he constructed a 500-pound cake model of a children's hospital for a little patient's 47th surgery in 2018, it was one of the most heartwarming moments. He even provided funding for a mobile bakery truck that provided athletes with job training and snacks during Special Olympics Games. His foundation awarded young culinary students $180,000 in scholarships in 2023 alone.